I don't know. I mean, I think for me, like with sweat equity and working so hard and starting super lean, I mean, starting literally from zero, self-funded as a young guy. I think it was just survival. I don't think it was like I've got this great natural entrepreneurial instinct. I think it was like I want to make sure this works and I don't want to run out of cash. I don't want to like open like my bank statement and see a scary number. But then what happens is when you do start to see it growing, it's so easy to add that little 70 a month thing here and 150 a month thing here. And I did still do some of that, got the fancy um phones that didn't really need, could have still done the redneck intercom, like, hey, James, I could have done that another year. Maybe getting that higher that maybe could have held off a little longer. I still did some of that stuff.
At what point did that start to shift for you, right? In terms of whether it was spending less time on the business or, rewarding yourself for all the effort that you put in, right? To go, buy a
Yeah.
nice car, go on a vacation, upgrade the house, et cetera. Like, what was that
Yeah.
turning point and how did you?
Yeah, there were a couple turning points because it wasn't like this one thing and then it switched from that day on. But I would say one would be when we had our first kid. That made it different. It was one thing when I was, you know, not married. I was engaged when I started that one company where I was working till 4 in the morning. But I wasn't married yet, and no kids. So it was just like, let's go. And then getting married and then having the baby. And I was like, holy crap, I'm somebody's dad. I don't want to be like successful and the kid never sees me and it's like all about work and I'm on my phone like missing the soccer game. Like my daughter kicked a goal and I was looking down at a thing or I wasn't even there. I didn't want that. So that was a big game changer. Another one was my mentor, super bright guy, Harvard MBA, owned several companies, and I remember him explaining to me the key man discount, which key man or key woman discount, which is to the degree that the owner is entrenched and the necessary in the business is the degree that that company is worth less and it gets discounted, the valuation takes a hit. If like without you there wouldn't be that much there, the company's not sellable, it's not worth as much. And I remember him telling me that it could be as much as 40% difference. And I was like, oh my God. So if I can get my business to run with or without me, I could sell it for that much more. And he's like, yeah, God, that's all the motivation you need. And you think about it, it's better for the staff because if it relies on you and something happens to you and things happen, then they're all out of a job. It's like their job is at risk, their whole careers. I had people that moved to Florida to work for my company, that they'd have to be like, oh, I guess I have to move to Chicago. Oh, I guess I have to move back to New York. Oh, I guess I have to move back to Orlando, and so I thought it's good for everybody if the company could still go. And even if I have people could, you have plans, people still know what needs to happen and it could all be sorted out. And, it's like Steve Jobs died a long time ago, but Apple's still going. He hasn't been in the office in a while.
Yeah. Uh-huh. He did come and go with various repercussions along the way. But yeah, he built a empire, right, that can run without him along the way, which is challenging to do, right?
It is hard. It's super hard.
Particularly for the ego of an entrepreneur, right? Who I built this, I'm the best one to do every single
Yeah,
function, right? Which just isn't true, right? Not
yeah,
feasible, but
it's exhausting.
so how did you get yourself from, the hustle and bustle of, 80 plus hours a week to where you are today? And where are you today so the audience can understand, what that looks like for you?
Yeah, so in July 2018, I decided to travel for an entire year with my wife and our kids. We went to 29 countries. I mean, like everywhere. Um, and and like as we said at the beginning, I'm like literally on a tropical island. Um, a- and and part of that was because when I sold my last company, I made a list of rules for my life before starting the next company. And most people start the company, and then the company determines the lifestyle. But if you map out the lifestyle first, then as you have ideas, you filter it through those rules, right? And then you say like, oh, that could be cool, and then you're like, oh, but one of my rules is nothing that geographically ties me to any one location. Then you're like, that would, so nope, not going to do it. Or nothing where I'll ever have to work on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then think, oh well, I'd probably have to do this and that, on the weekends sometimes. And it's up to you, what those rules are. But the first thing that I did was like physically got out of the office, even drove outside of the city I lived in, and mapped out a detailed plan of attack, like how I was going to do it. And over the years, I started doing that every year, because every year there's like new things. You free up time, then the void gets filled. Um, and so I started doing that every year, and then I started thinking, man, this would be cool to do with other entrepreneurs in the room too, and we could all go through this thing together and bring in some badasses who built and scaled and sold their companies, and then have them get up and share like what they did and how they did it and stuff. And so in December 2013, I just rented a ballroom, um, told some people I knew, brought in a couple badasses that I knew, and we did it. I called it Plan the Attack. And we've been doing it every December since December 2013, almost 10 years at the point that we're recording this.
Nice. And that sounds like it's a first step in annual planning in terms of setting
Yep.
guidelines, boundaries for yourself. Going
Yep.
into
Map out your detailed plan. The next thing is, like, if you have that plan, don't try to do the whole thing yourself. Start building out a leadership and a support team. If you don't have an assistant, that means you are the assistant, and you're the assistant. You're the CEO. You might be the sales manager, the CFO, the HR, director. Keep going and going and going. The ops person. The chief marketing officer. And so the less of those roles you can have, the better. And you build next in command, support team, and then master delegating to those people. So it's a skill and it's an art, but there's really specific things that you can do to delegate properly. And most of the time, if you've ever asked somebody to do something and got frustrated about how long it took, or that they did it this way, or whatever, it's almost always because you didn't specify, or you didn't, probably didn't delegate it properly or as well as you could have. So master delegation. There are books on it, there are courses on it. Learn how to do that as well as you can. Next thing would be systematizing your processes so that they can work without you. If you actually mapped out the way things go in your business, like here's our lead generation process, here's our sales process, here's our whatever, how something goes in your business. If you actually map that out and then look at it and be like, how many of those things that you mapped out with arrows and rectangles and stuff, how many of those things are you, map it out. So like, all right, how do I maybe connect these two? So that's one less step. Or how do I make it so maybe technology could do that instead of me, or how do I do that so this person on my team does that instead of me, so that you can have hopefully a process that can go from the very beginning to the end. I'll never forget the way it felt the first time in my litigation support company, where there was something where from the client's call to whoever answered that, to whoever went and met with them, whoever made the estimate, whoever did the work, whoever did the invoice, whoever delivered it. Because in the beginning, I did every single one of those steps, to where I remember after a certain amount of time, the first one to go all the way through that without me touching it even once. Like, I didn't even know the name of the project or the client or anything. And I was like, holy crap. Oh my God. It's possible to go all the way from the very start to the very end without me touching it. This is amazing. That was, like, to me, more exciting than like however much money I made from it. Then the next thing is just, you have to make the time to learn how to do the stuff that we're talking about. So many people are too busy making what they make, selling what they sell, to actually study this stuff and get better at it and talk to other people, make the time to get better. And what you're doing by listening to this. Guilt is a huge thing. Getting over guilt, or like you said, the ego that I have to be the smartest, best person. I know everything, or limiting beliefs that it's not possible, that it has to be you, or it'll never work if you're not doing it. You have to get over all of that. Get over guilt, get over ego, get over limiting beliefs, and that takes time, and it takes, I mean, literally like mentally conditioning yourself in whichever. I was all three of them. I was all three. I was all three. And then, I'm obviously a big advocate for leveraging other CEOs' hindsight and group thinking, and accountability. That's what 12 Mavens is. That's what we do, is like hear how other entrepreneurs are managing their time more effectively, how they're being more productive, how they're automating and delegating and outsourcing, and how others are doing it. And pull from this one, pull from this one, pull from this one, test it out. Oops, nope, that didn't work. Let's try this.
Lots of great insights there, Jeff. As we're wrapping up, if there was one place that you would recommend someone who's listening, who's like, man, this is great, and this is a lot of new information, where would you suggest that they start?
Ooh. When I was starting out back in the old days, when I was young, I would go to the library and literally walk out with stacks of audiobooks from the library for free. Now I think you can do that digitally, even from the library, get tons of audiobooks for free. Some of them, because it was the library, they'd be a little bit outdated. You'd have that 80s music. You're listening to, and you're like, oof, this is kind of painful. But I mean, that's a start. These days there's so much. But sometimes if you just try to get just the free stuff, you kind of get sort of at the surface risk getting down into it. Listening to things like podcasts like this, is good. Reach out to entrepreneurs, reach out to CEOs. I mean, on our 12 Mavens website, we've got lots of interviews with like Inc. 500 CEOs and entrepreneurs, and how they scale their companies.
So it sounds like a lot of focus on the awareness piece first, and trying to figure out what you don't know, gaining insight from others, and that will likely lead to some sort of plan of attack or actions out of those insights from learning from others.
It'll give you the knowledge, but it won't give you the plan. People have to disconnect from the day-to-day stuff with a pad of paper and a pen, and actually map out the plan, or their laptop or whatever they use. But you have to make the plan. You have to, I mean, there are tools, cheat tools, where you can map out like month by month what your signups are going to be and what your revenue is going to be. And you have, have those numbers, you get the metrics so that you're practical about it, not just like, I can do anything, so you can't get killed. If you're just like, I believe is part of it. I just posted a thing on LinkedIn today about like believe. When you're doubting it's gonna happen, you gotta believe it. But then, that's a step. You gotta map out that plan, you gotta have the metrics, you gotta know how many people do we need to call every day to have a meaningful conversation? How many conversations do we have to have every day to get a sale?
Yeah, building the funnel for sure. What's the best way for listeners to be able to connect back with you, Jeff?
Yeah, do it. If they listen, I'm on LinkedIn every now and then. If they listen to your podcast, they can just email me, jeff@12mavens.com. I do have an executive assistant that goes through my emails and thins it out before I get to it. But just mention that you heard this podcast, and she'll leave it in there.
Awesome. Appreciate the time today, Jeff, and all the
Yeah,
insights for the audience.
man, my pleasure. Thank you.